I came to Canada believing in something simple: stability, fairness, opportunity. This country is built by people that left something behind and people that stayed, building something steady. My guest today represents a community that watched him grow up. He never really left home, but he stepped into a national stage. Tonight, we talk about roots, responsibility, and what it means to lead at a time when identity feels louder than unity. This is In Talks, and I'm Mendika Bashi. We start today, and we continue every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Yvan, thank you for accepting my invitation, and thank you for being here. It's such an honor to have you here.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Mendy.
Thank you. There is something very interesting about you. You never left at all because it's more rooted than anything else. So was that stability, comfort, or, something much more than people like me who had to start life 3 times all over in 3 different countries can't really understand?
Well, first of all, Etobicoke is a wonderful community in the city of Toronto. I feel fortunate to have grown up there and to live there and now to represent that community in Parliament. My family went through, you talked about the hardship that you lived through and your family lived through, and my mother, my grandparents lived through tremendous hardship before coming to Canada. And I know for my grandparents, who came to Canada after World War II, for them, Canada, my grandmother used to say Canada's a paradise, and so for them, I know that for them what was important was that they build a life for their children and their grandchildren in safety and security and prosperity that ensures that their family never has to live through what they lived through. So that's how I came to be in Etobicoke. Yes, I grew up there. I went to school here in the city of Toronto. I worked in the city of Toronto. I studied in the United States for a couple of years, and lived some time, in other parts of the city. But for the most part, I've lived in Etobicoke, and I love it. It's a beautiful community. I love the people. I'm invested in their success, and so I think for a member of Parliament in our system, where you represent, a district, where you go to Parliament and you have to advocate or fight for the people in your community every day, I think you want people who love their communities, who are committed, invested in their communities. So I'm invested in my community, and that makes me proud to represent it and work for it.
That's powerful because, these people watched you grow up. So representing maybe not the same one, because there is a lot of, change that has happened throughout the time. But it's interesting, not usual, totally unusual. And you did get very uncomfortable because you did step into a national stage. So that's not comfort for sure.
Well, I think we all, without risk, I don't think there is success. And so in any field. And so you have to take risks in life. I don't compare that discomfort with the discomfort that you lived, or the discomfort that many Canadians have lived, and whether that's economic or social. I don't pretend to have lived through that sort of discomfort. I'm a very, very lucky person to have been born here, to have grown up here. I've lived I think I've lived the life that my grandparents would have hoped for me, and so I'm very fortunate. But I also think that means that I have a responsibility to give back, to make that life, to make sure others can enjoy that life, and to give back to the community that's helped raise me and given me so much, and given me that comfort and that security and that stability and that opportunity. So, and that's partly why I ran for office in the first place, right? Because the best way, and I think, to make a difference for people and to create that kind of life that we want for Canadians.
There is also something very interesting about you. You were absolutely an atypical young man who chose completely a different, different sports. You went into dancing, Ukrainian dancing, then ballet. What gave you the confidence to make that different choice from everybody else? Everybody expects Canadians to go for hockey. You went for Ukrainian dancing and then, ballet. A lot of discipline there, but also a lot of confidence to choose different from the others.
Well, Mindy, I have to tell you that, like when I was a kid, there were many days when I wanted to play hockey, to be honest with you, because that's what my friends were doing, and it's popular and it's fun. But my parents, my mom especially, wanted me to experience different things. And when I tried ballet, and I liked it. I liked performing. I liked what I learned from it. I loved the exercise. I loved the discipline, the friendships that I built there. So, and Ukrainian dancing was similar, and I'm still very, very close friends with those people. So, and I learned a lot from dancing and performing that I think has helped me in this line of work and would have helped me in other lines of work. I was a pretty shy kid growing up, and I think performing, maybe this is why my mom wanted me to do these things, but I think performing helps you build your confidence. And so, I'm happy with those choices. I don't regret them at all. And, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I think it made me stronger.
Yeah, well, definitely did. Even so, you graduated here, and then you started working in a bank,
Mm-hmm.
and then you left everything totally out of your comfort for less money, more work.
Yeah,
You decided to work for an MP.
that's right.
And why? Why would someone go out of their comfort to, I believe you said you really believe you can make a change, so you gave it a try or something around those lines. But tell me more about it.
Sure. I mean, you're right, and we talked about this off air, that I'd been working at the bank after graduating from university, and I had this vision of, working in the bank and moving my way up in the corporate world, whether in banking or in business or something else. And then, but I had always been, like, my dad ran to be a member of parliament when I was in my teenage years. I was 14 or so. Politics and community involvement was always something that was important in our family, and we all participated in that in various ways. So, and I told you about my grandparents and how, I was, and my parents also, but I was brought up with this sense that, I'm lucky to live in this country and I need to give back. And so I started to volunteer. As I was working and pursuing my career, I started volunteering, just in charities, but also in politics. Because I started to realize that how impactful governments are on the things that matter to our society. So, your viewers, whether, especially those of them in Canada, all of them will have different views as to what Canada needs to do better or differently, right? Maybe it's the cost of living is too high or growing too quickly. Maybe the cost of housing is too much. Maybe the economy's, there aren't enough jobs and opportunities. Maybe it's what the United States is doing. Whatever the issues happen to be, healthcare, et cetera, I started to realize it's government that impacts these things more than anybody else can. So I got involved in politics, volunteered for someone named Boris Jasnevsky, who was a businessman himself, and eventually I helped him, along with others, we helped him get elected as a member of parliament. And so I was in my 20s, in my early 20s, and then one day I was sitting at the bank. I remember I was sitting in my cubicle, and the phone rang, and it was Boris. And he said to me, "Yvan, I want to make you an offer that you can't refuse." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I want you to come work for me." And he said, "You're gonna, like you said, Mendy, you're gonna work harder than you do now. You're gonna make less money than you do now, but we're gonna make a difference, and we're gonna do it together." And for me, that was the main reason, because I thought I had a chance to help somebody to make a difference for people. Right? And that to me was more valuable than the money that I would forgo and the career prospects I would forgo. So yeah. So I did that for a couple of years, and it was very, very rewarding, and not just because, you know, we made a difference, but because, you know, I learned a lot through that, and that experience really helped me to be where I am today.
Interesting. But then you left.
Yeah, I left. I think I'm a big believer that in life you have to constantly be evaluating how you can grow and move towards your objectives. And sometimes in life our objectives change, right? When I was in my early 20s, my objectives were different than they are today, and that's normal. But so I was, you know, working for Boris. I had worked for him for a couple of years. He was right. I worked very, very, very hard, and we made a difference for people. But I felt that if I wanted to grow, whether it was in the corporate world, back to the business world, or whether it was in politics, maybe run for office someday, that I needed to advance my education. And so I decided to pursue an MBA in the United States at a university called Dartmouth College. The business school there is called Tuck. Best business school in the world as far as I'm concerned. I'm a little biased, but I think it's great. But again, that was why I left, was to pursue something that I thought was incredibly valuable, and it was.
Did those 2 years give you the confidence to take a swing?
Yeah. Did I tell you this story?
You did.
I did. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell the story if in case your viewers are interested in this. I mean, when I was at Dartmouth College. So Dartmouth College is in New Hampshire. It's in the northeast part of the United States, on the border between New Hampshire and Vermont. It's a beautiful part of the United States. It's about 2.5 hours northwest of Boston, 3.5 hours south of Montreal. Beautiful part of the United States. So I was there, and we were studying. And one day, you know, I was doing an MBA, so a business degree. So we're studying business people, and one day there was a television show that was being taped at the university, and they were interviewing 2 CEOs of big companies. And one of the CEOs who was being interviewed was a gentleman by the name of Jeff Immelt, and he was the CEO of General Electric. General Electric's still a very big company, but back then it was one of the largest in the world, with a presence in many, many countries around the world. And so he came, and you know, if you're a business student, if you're aspiring to move up in the corporate world, like Jeff Immelt is kind of a rock star, right? Like for you, for a business person. So this was very exciting, and we all were in this auditorium, and he was being interviewed and asked questions, kind of like you're asking questions of me. The questions were tough but fair, right? Like your questions, tough but fair. And then and he was very articulate and concise. He had an excellent answer for all the questions about business and the economy and everything. And then they asked him, well, what did you, because he did his MBA as well, I think he did it at Harvard, and he says, what did you get out of your MBA? And I remember Jeff Immelt, this was the first question of all the questions he'd been asked where he paused and he had to reflect a little bit, and he didn't have sort of an answer ready. Maybe he hadn't been asked this before, I don't know. And so he said, when you go do an MBA, you study finance and accounting and marketing and these sorts of subjects. And he says, but when you graduate, years after your MBA, after you graduate, you're not going to remember what you learned in accounting or finance or marketing. And I didn't either, he said. But what the MBA did was give me the confidence to take a swing. That's the story you were talking about. So for me, that means, you know, the confidence to try and take risks and know that you have the knowledge and the experiences to allow you to succeed. And the ability to deal with failure as well and learn from that and grow. So the MBA was a great experience in terms of my career, because I went back to my business career after that. But also, I grew as a person, as a leader. We learned a lot about in business. A lot of those who are successful in business are, yes, they're smart, yes, they're hardworking, of course, like in any field. But one of the things that's important in business, especially, is leadership and teamwork and communications and rigorous thinking and those sorts of things. And so the MBA did that.
You were given the opportunity to work in global stage in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody would have loved that and never, left that opportunity? You stayed 3 months?
Yeah, 3 months.
And you came back.
Yeah.
Did you leave something unfinished? What was that? Love for Canada?
It was a mix of factors. I mean, I had this vision when I went to business school in the United States. I really enjoyed my studies there. I had great friends. I had a great network there of friends. And I had this vision of living and working in Manhattan. And so during my MBA, it's a 2-year degree. In the summer between the first and the second year, all the students get internships with companies that they hope to work for after they graduate. So I spent 3 months working for a company called the Boston Consulting Group. And they have offices, in dozens of countries around the world, but several offices in the US, including New York. So I applied to work at the New York office. I got the job. I couldn't have been happier. Like, this was the dream job for me at the time. And this was, like, Manhattan was incredible. I mean, I loved it. I lived in an apartment in the East Village, for those of your viewers who know New York, at 2nd Avenue and 9th Street. It was the summer, so the weather was beautiful. I worked ridiculously long hours, but I didn't mind. I loved the job. I loved the place. I loved the city. But I spent 3 months doing this. And then the decision came, do I want to come back? Because they offered me a job to come back to New York City to work for their firm after I graduate. And I realized that something was missing for me. Had nothing to do with the workplace. It was great. The work was great, but the city was great. But I missed Toronto. I missed Canada. I knew that, just like before, like I told you before, I want to have purpose in life. And that for me, that's important. I think for a lot of people, it's important. And we find that purpose differently, in different ways. But for me, that was kind of going back to what I'd done before I went to business school, before I even started working for Boris, was making a difference for people. So I could have done that in the US, I could have done that in Manhattan, for sure. But that wasn't the community I grew up in. Those weren't the people I knew. I wasn't as invested in them. And so I wanted to come home and do it for the people that I care about, for the country that I love. So I asked the company if they would transfer my offer to the City of Toronto, and I worked in the office in the City of Toronto. That was how I made that decision.
And then you stayed there for another 1.5 years or so, or 2 years, and then you started your own company.
Yeah.
You continued with the volunteering work, and that's not it. I mean, and you didn't do that for the recognition, because nobody does volunteering for, and you did get the recognition. That's why I'm mentioning it.
Oh, I see. Yes, that's right. That's true.
It meant, but it meant a lot. I'm being, appreciated for what you've given to the community. But what's left with you from that volunteering work?
Yeah, I mean, I did receive some recognition for that, which was nice, but like you said, you don't do it for that reason. And if you want recognition, there are other fields and activities you can get involved with that give you a lot more recognition. I mean, for me, it was just rewarding, right? It's just rewarding. So, like I said at the beginning of our discussion, I mean, it's I feel, and I was taught this by my grandparents, my parents, I'm lucky to live in this country, and I should give back, right? Like, so I think for me that was something that just part of who I am. It always has been, it always will be. And so when I was working at Boston Consulting Group in Toronto, I worked for about 2 years there, and then I started my own consulting practice in Toronto. And what those jobs basically meant was that when I worked at BCG, for example, was we got hired by other companies, sometimes by governments, to help solve really complicated problems that they face, that they don't know how to solve. Most companies, everybody's got a job. Everybody's keeping the trains running on time, right? But when you're a company and you have to and there's like a new problem that comes your way, you might not have the experience dealing with that type of problem, or your people might be busy keeping the company running, operating, right? So sometimes they bring in consultants like us to help them solve these problems. So that's what I used to do. So I did that for BCG, for Boston Consulting Group. I did it I had my own firm that I started and consulted, and then as you said, I was volunteering, and the Member of Parliament in Ontario at the provincial level for my community in the Etobicoke Centre, her name is Donna Cansfield, and she decided she was going to retire from politics. And one day we were sitting together and she said, I'm going to retire and I think you should run. And that's what led me to pursue that provincial politics and then federal politics. And
so it was a mixture between fate, what was it, a calling? Or did you know you were going to do this? Like, was that a choice or something that you had thought about before,
Yeah.
that offer being given to you?
I had for sure thought about maybe running for politics one day. I didn't think it would come so soon. Like, I thought it would be something that I would do later in life, after I'd had a business career. But Donna approached me and the opportunity was there, and
you took it and you ran with it.
Yeah, I had to go with it, right? So I'm glad that I did. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Donna and Boris and a few others, right, who helped give me those opportunities along the way. And we all have that in life, right? Like the things that you are grateful for in life, Mendy, or your viewers are grateful for in life. People open doors for them or help them along the way, and so that was one of those moments.
I will say something that's important for me to say before we jump to the next chapter or stage of our interview,
Sure.
Which is something that struck me about you. I've heard you speak about the love you have for Canada, without cameras, behind closed doors, no microphones. That's pure. And it's inspiring. So, I mean, it's something that you don't see very often, and I'm glad that we have representatives of the community, people that are in public service that really care about this country, because it is amazing. There are problems as everywhere else, but if there weren't, you wouldn't have a job.
That's right.
I wouldn't have a job. So it's good to have people that take politics as a responsibility more than anything else, not just pure ego. And I really like that about you.
Thank you.
It shows that you're a good man.
Thank you.
Even.
So I thank you for saying that, and I think, look, we are really lucky. Look, those of us who live in Canada are really, really lucky. Like, we are kiss the ground lucky. I sometimes as a politician, I get invited to speak at schools, a school classroom, and usually it's a grade 5, because that's when students in Ontario are studying civics, I'm sorry, not physics. And so they're learning about government, and they invite the MP in, and I talk to them, and I tell them that all the time, like how lucky we are, right? And I didn't realize, even when I was that age, maybe I didn't appreciate how lucky I am. But I think it's the best country in the world, and I know that but there's, like you said, there's lots to improve on, and we have to improve it, and that's my job. And and I love trying to make that happen, right? And that's rewarding for me when I'm able to, advocate for something or work with some other MPs or citizens or constituents, and we're able to persuade government to do something that's good for people. Like, there's nothing more rewarding to me than that, right? Like, that's why I'm there. But I also think, like, as much as there are problems and there are challenges, like, there's no question, we're really, really lucky. And I think that's important to focus on what we can fix, but also remember how fortunate we are, because there's billions of people around the world who would happily give anything to sit where we're sitting today.
Absolutely. And there is grace in the way you connect with people and you listen, and that's also very rare, unfortunately. And I do appreciate it. In the few occasions that I was waiting behind the office door, you had always someone that you were talking to, someone from the community, a random individual from your community that was most probably complaining about something, and you listened. And the fact that these people come out with a smile on their face, it's it's rewarding, I guess, in a way or something.
That's really kind. Thank you. Well, I'll tell you quickly on that. I think Donna Cansfield, who preceded me as the provincial member of parliament, she once told me, she gave me advice I'll never forget. She said, you know, most people, when they see politicians, they see them maybe on television, like people are seeing me now, or they see them giving a speech at an event, or maybe in parliament or something. They see them talking, communicating something, telling people something. And she says, so it's natural for us to start to believe that, like, the number one job of a politician is to talk, right, or communicate. But she said that's wrong. The most important job of a politician is to listen, right? Because when you listen, you understand. You hear what people's problems are, and you often hear good ideas from people. Because I don't have the solution to every problem, right? But my job is to understand what the problems are, and then listen to people who are experts or knowledgeable about what the solutions could be, and then bring that to the Prime Minister or the ministers or other people in government to help make those things happen. So the most important job of a politician is to listen, and I thank you for saying that. That's very kind. I try my best.
It's the truth. It's not kind. It's absolutely the truth. I've seen that, and I felt that. It's no uncomfortable questions. You're important to us as Albanians. Even you are important to us. You've connected with the Albanian community in a way that no other politician has. You are in the friendship group with the Albanian Canadian. And what does that really mean beyond, you know, flags and speeches? Yeah. What does that mean for people that just hear it and it's confusing?
It's a good question. I'm glad you asked that question. So I'm not uncomfortable yet. So in Parliament, when you're a politician, you have a constituency. My constituency is called the Etobicoke Centre, and I work on dozens of issues that are important to people in the Etobicoke Centre all the time. But politicians also take on specific issues that they believe can make a difference for their community or for the country, and they take leadership on those issues. So some people take leadership on healthcare. Some people take leadership on housing. Some people take leadership, you know, in the past I've taken leadership on Ukraine and ensuring Canada and the world does everything we can to support the people of Ukraine. And so I've decided to take leadership on issues that touch our Canadian Albanian community. The friendship group, the Canada-Albania Parliamentary Friendship Group, is a group of MPs from, anybody can join from any political party, it's not partisan, who want to work on those issues, whatever those issues happen to be. And so that doesn't mean we don't, of course we work on all the other issues, but we've decided, those of us in this group, and I'm the chair, so I spend the most time, I've decided to take leadership on those issues. So that means spending more time in the community to listen to people, and sometimes the issues they raise won't be specific to the Albanian community, they'll just be issues that Canadians are concerned about. But I'm there and present and listening and trying to understand that. And that could be affordability or healthcare or the economy or tariffs or whatever. But there's also issues that are specific to some communities. So, for example, recently there was a lot of work being done by a lot of people to try to facilitate direct flights between Canada and Albania. And part of this is a business decision. So Air Transat is the airline that will be doing that. Part of that, that's their decision. First of all, they have to want to do, a business has to want to do that. But then the government has a role to play in vetting that application and giving permission. And sometimes Canada gives permission for these things, sometimes it doesn't, for a whole range of reasons. And so my job as a politician is to listen to the Albanian Canadian community, and I heard from them this is important. This is important for person-to-person ties, because I know many people who live in Canada travel back to Albania annually, if not more often, for personal reasons, for family reasons. But there's also business opportunities, right? And so if we want to have greater trade with Albania, which we do, the Prime Minister's talked about doubling our non-US trade in the next 10 years. Albania's got to be part of that. How are we going to do that? If people have, one of the ways we do that is by facilitating those connections and those business contacts and that travel. So this was important, not just for the Albanian community, but for the Canadian economy. And so I was, I was leading the charge in advocating with our Minister of Trade, with others in government, to make sure we do this and that we do it quickly. Because I think that was one of the key elements of this, was not just that we wanted it done, but we wanted it done as quickly as possible so that Air Transit could start these flights this summer. And so I didn't do it alone. I'm not pretending that. My job is to be an advocate, to kind of urge government to do the things that I think are best for the country. But I know that the Albanian government worked very hard, people in the Canadian government worked very hard, members of the community, Albanian Canadian community worked towards this. So, but as chair of the Canada-Albania Parliamentary Friendship Group, my job is to listen, to understand, and to work to address those issues that are important to that community. And that's an example. Another example is I've done this for years now, but introducing a bill that would designate November in Canada as Albanian Heritage Month. When I was a member of provincial parliament at Queen's Park, we passed such a bill in the Ontario Parliament, but that's for Ontario. We want to do it nationally. And it's actually passing a bill in Parliament, any bill, no matter how much agreement there is actually a very difficult process in Canada. It requires, it's not because people don't agree. Yes, it has to pass a vote, of course, but it's also, there's procedures that have to be undertaken, and it takes a long time. So I've been working towards that, and I've introduced that bill, Parliament, after each election in the last few years. Every time I get elected, I've reintroduced this bill. And it's an opportunity to celebrate Albanian heritage, but also the contributions that Albanian Canadians make to Canada. And I think that visibility in a very positive way is only a good thing for the Albanian Canadian community.
Being recognized in a way, we're here and the number is growing. But I have noticed or heard, or both, that recently the Canadian government is starting to deny a lot of visas for Albanian Canadians that want to bring families in, even applying. Is that related in any way with what President Trump, decided to restrict in terms of visa applications or immigration applications with different countries, and one of these countries was Albania as well. So is it related in any sense? Just to clear the air, I'm curious.
No, it's not. It's not related to. It's not related to President Trump's immigration policies at all. Mm-hmm. And I want to be clear. I think the reduction in the number of visas Canada's issuing to Albanians is also true for basically every other country around the world. So we are reducing the number of people, Canada is reducing the number of people that's accepting on visas from all countries. Okay. And it's reducing the number of permanent residents that we are approving every year, people who will ultimately become citizens. And we've done that because I certainly have the view, I think many Canadians have this view, that over the past several years, Canada accepted more people than we could welcome. So every country has a capacity to welcome a certain number of people because you have a certain amount of housing and a certain amount of infrastructure, schools and hospitals and services. And I think we accepted more people than we could accommodate. And I think a lot of Canadians feel that way as well. And so what Prime Minister Carney promised, and now that he's elected, he's delivering on that promise, is reducing the number. So the number of permanent residents to Canada used to be about 500,000 a year. It's now, this year I believe it's about 365,000 that we're accepting. And this year, for the first time in decades, I don't know how long, Canada's population is actually going to decline because we've reduced immigration so much. So, and the same applies to visas. We're reducing the number of temporary visitors as well. So if people are struggling to welcome their family members from Albania, people can, especially if you live in Etobicoke, please reach out to me. If you live somewhere else, reach out to your member of parliament, because members of parliament do this all the time. We look into these things to see if there's something that can be done differently, and to make sure people are getting, that the system, the immigration system or the visa application system is treating people properly. There's no miscommunications, that everything's being done the way it should. So please reach out to me if you live in a Etobicoke Centre, and me and my team are happy to help and see what we can do. But in general, generally speaking, it's because we've decided to reduce the number of visas we're issuing to countries, to people in countries around the world.
Just making sure it's not personal to Albanians.
It's definitely not personal.
I wanted to clear the air on that because I had no doubts. But I wanted, to hear it from you, because there has been so much confusion and speculation about this, and Canadians don't do that.
No, it's not. It's not targeted at any one country.
Yeah.
It's not. It's just we have to be practical. Like we can only. Canada has a population of just over 40 million people, and we can only accept so many new people to Canada every year, and that's because we have limited capacity. And so I think we exceeded that capacity for the last few years, and so we need to reduce the number so that the infrastructure and the services, the healthcare services, the housing, I mean, so many, I'm sure many of your viewers who live in Canada, and this is not just a Canadian problem, but certainly in Canada, are struggling with the cost of housing. Like the rents have skyrocketed. The cost of buying a home has gotten out of reach especially for young people. And so we have to fix that. And we're going to fix that. The Prime Minister has a whole series of measures to try to do that. Part of that is building a lot more housing supply, so increase the supply. But part of that is also ensuring that the population doesn't grow as quickly. And to do that, we need to reduce immigration. And that's what we've done.
So you don't want a community that grows fast, which has happened. We've seen it happening in the past 5 years, I would say.
Yeah.
You want to go back to stability in a way.
Yeah, we have to find that balance, right?
Finding the balance. What about deportation?
So deportation. Deportations are for people who are here illegally in Canada.
Yeah.
And so deportations have been part of the process every year, and absolutely, if people are here illegally, they have then they'll be asked to leave, they'll be encouraged to leave. Canada doesn't deport people on the day their visa expires, but if
I'm talking about people that came here illegally, like safety has been another very big concern lately. As a mother, as a Canadian Albanian, as as a member of my community, as someone who really loves Canada because of the stability, safety, and as someone who chose to raise her kids in Canada, I feel that's something really important for our kids to grow in a safe community. Mm-hmm. And that's why the question was more personal in terms of, I think a lot of mothers out there are questioning safety here. There are moments where you don't feel safe, letting your kid walk 300 meters to school, regardless of the age, because we've heard a lot of scary kids being abducted and all that. So it's a problem that you hope that it's being looked after, and the deportation is as active as controlled immigration at the same time. So
look, I think on the issue of community safety, that's one of the top issues for people in my community is safety and reducing crime, right? And I think we have to, and there's a whole, I can talk about that if that's of interest, Mendy, for sure, like what the roots of the problems are and some of the solutions that I think are needed and are being undertaken to try to solve that problem. But there's no question that, the amount of crime in Canada has grown over the past number of years. And in central Etobicoke, certainly, people have expressed to me over and over again how a version of what you just said, right? Where they don't feel safe in their communities. Sometimes in our community, the most common thing that I hear about from people is, break-ins to their homes, people trying to steal their cars, breaking into their home to steal their car or to steal other things. So home invasions, we often call them. And that is that's not just about theft, right? Like that's life-altering. That's life-altering for people, and I've had a friend who had people break into his home in the middle of the night. So all this to say, it is something that we have to solve. It's come about, the reason there's been a growth in crime, in my view, there's a number of reasons, but But at the end of the day, and a lot of the crime that we're seeing, like the home invasions and the car thefts, are being led by organized crime. And so the government's done a whole series of things. Most recently, Mr. Carney introduced a law, we passed legislation that will increase sentences for criminals. So you get convicted of a crime, like a home invasion, like a violent crime, there are others as well in that list, then you will face much more significant time in jail. And also we've made it harder for people to get bail. So if they're arrested, charged with a crime, very often people if they're not seen as, if a judge believes they're not a danger to society, they're released on bail, which means that they don't have to stay in jail until their trial happens, which can often take a year or two or more until it actually takes place. And there's been too many cases, in my view, where people who've been released on bail go off and recommit crimes. Absolutely. And so with the law that the federal government's passing makes it much harder to get bail. But I will also say that, in our system, we need, for us to stop crime, we need police to be able to be properly resourced and funded so that they can arrest the criminals, those people who are committing crimes. We need, and then once a person gets arrested, then in our system, they go into a court system. There's a prosecutor who charges them and a judge who has to oversee the trial. And that part of it is overseen by the Ontario government or the provincial governments in Canada. And then the federal government's job is to set the rules, the criminal code, the bail laws. If any one of those three pieces is not working well, the whole system falls apart or it doesn't work. Right now what's happened is, I think the laws at the federal level weren't tough enough. And so that's why Mr. Carney's made them tougher, right? Stiffer sentences, tougher to get bail. But we still need more done at the provincial level, because right now what's happened is that the jails are overwhelmed in Ontario, and the courts are overwhelmed, and the prosecutors are overwhelmed. So there's not enough capacity. And what that means is prosecutors have to choose which crimes they're going to prosecute. They're going to prosecute the most serious crimes, of course, but that means some other crimes that they would normally prosecute, they have to do a plea bargain, or judges have said that they can't put people behind bars, keep people behind bars because there's no room in the jails, for example. So we need all three levels of the police, the provincial government, the federal government working together to get us to a place where where that system is working well. But we're seeing some signs that the crime rate is reducing, and the police have had success in catching and prosecuting some of the organized criminals. So we're seeing some progress, but it's not where it needs to be yet, and we'll keep working because it's really, really important.
Okay, I'll stop making you uncomfortable.
No, I'm comfortable.
And it's well, this is the last one, I promise. In terms of government level, problems, or as you mentioned, you talked about a lot of things that are real problems and interest everyone, but you never mentioned taxes. Is that just because you forgot about it?
No, not at all.
Or nobody complains about it?
If we have time, I can talk a lot more about a lot of issues, including taxes. But I'm happy to talk about taxes. What's your question about taxes?
No, I mean, is it something considered from Mr. Carney in terms of? I'm pretty sure people come to your office and complain about it a lot.
Not only considered, but he's done it, right? So when Mr. Carney ran a year ago, approximately, less than a year ago, was the last federal election. And when he ran for prime minister, he promised a number of things. One of them was a tax cut, a middle-class tax cut. That was one of the first things he did. That was one of the first things. So he cut income taxes. He eliminated the consumer carbon tax, which was another form of tax that many people, wanted us to eliminate. He did that, and so he's done that. There's other things we've done to make. So for in housing, we've removed the GST on housing purchases for people in certain situations, so they can more easily afford a home. So he's reduced taxes quite significantly. That income tax cut and the elimination of the carbon tax, that's many billion. I don't have the number in front of me, Mendy, but it's many billions of dollars. Less that the government's taking in taxes. And those things on its own aren't going to solve the affordability challenges that many people face, but I think they're helpful. At least that's what people are telling me. So yes. And I think Mr. Carney, if we take a step back, this is somebody who was a business person, who was the governor of the central bank in Canada and in the United Kingdom. This is somebody who knows how economies work, how to build a strong economy, how to help make prosperity for people. And so I think, and making sure taxes are at the right level is a big part of that, right? And making life more affordable. So, yeah, he's not just considering it, he's doing it.
So you're saying we're in safe hands?
We're in safe hands, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, very safe hands.
Let's go back to Albania.
Yeah.
Albanian community. So it's mainly Canadian Albanians, proud to be both.
Yeah.
There is no embassy in Tirana. So we're both NATO allies. Albania has an embassy in Ottawa, and Canada has an embassy in Rome that represents, the Albanian. Is there any plan to change that? Is that enough? It's odd.
Yeah.
Do you think sometimes that Albanians are not recognized enough in Canada? Shouldn't there be amendments starting with this, for example, making it comfortable for us? There is a U.S. embassy, there is no Canadian embassy. That's something that, it's worth consideration.
I think it's a great question. I do. I think, so on your question about recognizing Albanian Canadians, I think we need to recognize Albanian Canadians more. That's partly why I introduced this bill about creating an Albanian Heritage Month in Canada. It's partly why I ran to be the chair of the Canada-Albania Parliamentary Friendship Group to work on these issues, to work on solving problems, but also to celebrate and recognize the contributions of the community to this country. But I think if you go back to the embassy question, I think it's a great question. So Canada doesn't have embassies in every country around the world. The relationship, what you said about having an embassy in Italy that also serves Albania is common for Canada. We do that with other countries around the world as well. But I think an embassy would be fantastic. I have the privilege of working with Albania's ambassador to Canada, Artemis, and she's wonderful. And having her here, I think, helps to make the bonds between our countries stronger, whether it's economic bonds or on security issues or whatever the case. This issue of flights, direct flights, I know the ambassador worked very, very hard on that. And so these are examples. So the opposite is also true if we had an embassy in Albania, and I think that would be excellent. I think the key to doing that is to, look, I can't speak for the government and what they will decide, but because there are many factors that go into considering whether we put in place an embassy. But I think that the stronger the relationship and the deeper that relationship, the more likely it is we will have an embassy. Because an embassy is really there to support those relationships, those business relationships, those security relationships, those diplomatic relationships, political relationships. So the more we are doing with Albania in terms of trade, in terms of business especially, I think the more likely it is we'll have an embassy. But I will happily push for that. I think that's an excellent idea. But we also need to kind of continue to grow those ties, and hopefully the direct flights will be a small part of building that trade and building that relationship so we can have that embassy.
So in regards to the flights, which is absolutely an historical moment for Albania, indeed. So is that seasonal? Some people are saying it won't go further October, but you just mentioned that it's much more than just direct flights. It's a trade opportunity. It's an opportunity to get closer, have stronger relationships, and build something that will bring an embassy in Tirana very soon. So, what is the truth behind this agreement? Is it finalized?
Yeah. So the agreement. So let me take a step back. I think the flights, I don't want people to misunderstand. I think the flights on their own aren't going to lead to an embassy. I think the flights, I was just citing the flights as an example of the kind of steps that can lead to the relationship that then allows Canada to have an embassy. But as far as the flights go, I would say that's a business decision. It's not for the government of Canada or Albania won't decide this. Mm-hmm. It'll be Air Transat. Mm-hmm. And hopefully some of the other airlines too who take advantage of this. But Air Transat is the airline that's currently going to be having the flights starting this spring. And so and they will have to make a decision, I presume, based on business factors. If there are enough people who want to travel all year long, then presumably they'll want to have more and more flights going all year long. So I don't know what they're going to decide in terms of the frequency of those flights and that sort of thing. But I mean, if your viewers want these flights to continue, like, I would encourage, make sure that if you're traveling to Albania, you're taking advantage of these direct flights, and you're scheduling your travel around when those flights are, because the more passengers they have, the more likely we'll have more flights. But that'll be a business decision.
It's a business decision, not a government decision.
Our job was, there's a permitting process that's actually quite extensive when we're establishing new flights between countries. It's very, very elaborate, and this process that we undertook was done very fast, basically in record time, which I think shows a little bit how important Canada and Albania how importantly we value the relationship between our two countries. So, at least the governments do. And that's one of the reasons I was pushing for us to do this and to do it as quickly as possible. But, you know, I think the more business on those flights, the more flights there will be, and I have confidence that, you know, there's demand there, and that it'll grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Albanians should book direct flights more than anything else. So it's up to us to actually make this, you know, business decision, you know.
To vote with your wallet.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, that's good to know, because people were under the impression that it's a government decision, but it's not. No,
the government's job is simply to do the various types of checks that need to be done to allow for direct flights. This involves, there's a whole series of things that have to happen. It relates to infrastructure, it relates to security, it relates to a whole series of things that have to be done. And once that's done, then the same airline or other airlines can do more and more flights. Mm-hmm. So we've enabled that now. Mm-hmm. Now it's up to the airlines, Air Transat, and any other airline, if they wish to fly.
One last thing, because it was very important to me, and I think to every Albanian who has watched you, not just pass a private bill regarding what you mentioned, the Heritage Month, on a national level, not just provincial level, but also speaking in Albanian in the parliament. I will not forget that moment. I gave the video to my mom, and she said, "Bravo," and that came out of her heart. Like, it's very touching, and you know, it gets you, you know, Albanian community recognized, and much more than that. You spoke in Albanian. You said, "I want to give the opportunity to Albanians to say, jam krenar që jam shqiptar." That's right. And that was very nice.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you.
That was.
I've over the years, I got to know members of the Albanian community, leadership of the Albanian community, when I was, just before I was even elected for over 10 years ago. It was Ruki Kandai who I first met, and who welcomed me to an event, and she and others have since invited me to many events, and have also come to work with me on various issues. So, and I've really just loved working with the community and the community leadership. These are like, I've had wonderful experiences. It's a community of people who are just hardworking and want to build a better life for their families, and want to build a better Canada, and care about the issues that you've asked me about today, and other issues. So, and that reminds me a lot of my own upbringing, and I've really enjoyed working with them. So speaking, my Albanian's not as good as it should be, Mendy, to be honest. I'm afraid you're going to ask me to say it.
We'll work on that.
But
no, I'm not. I'm not.
But it's, to me, it's just a way to show respect.
Absolutely.
To the community, and a small way of saying thank you.
And you've accomplished that 100%. How do you want to be remembered, Yvan?
By whom?
By all of us.
I would just want, for me, success is making a difference for people in a positive way. That's success in this job for me. And when you run for political office, you know, you could hope to be there a long time, but you might not be, because elections are unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. So I just want to make take advantage of the time I have in politics to make the biggest difference. So how do I want to be remembered? I want to be remembered as somebody who made a difference to people on the issues that mattered to them. And hopefully I'll be able to do that for people.
Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thanks, Yvan.
Thank you.
This is In Talks, and we're going to meet every Wednesday at 8 p.m.